bring in the gentleman previously mentioned, Andrew McIntosh and Mitch Gitleman from Harebrained Schemes. Gentlemen, thank you guys so much for being with us, and welcome back again.
Third time's the charm.
Absolutely.
Third time is the charm. Okay, so what I want to start by asking you guys, and I'm going to get some video on for these. Chat, by the way, can we have some love for these wonderful people? I want to start by asking something very simple, which is, you guys have already released 2 tremendous games. Presumably, each time you release a new game, that ups the ante on what you're going to have to do the next time to make it even cooler. So my question is, as a sort of general starting point, what did you do? What are you planning to do with this incredibly successful Kickstarter, which I think is 700, almost 750,000 at last check? What are you guys going to do to make it even cooler? Can you encapsulate in a couple of basic things, like, you know, what exactly is going to up the ante on Hong Kong compared to previous games? And that's for either one of you.
Sure. Well, I'll start, because through the generous co-funding of our Kickstarter backers, we were able to add a lot of stuff to the game. Some UI for being able to pick up inventory items, trade them among your team members, that kind of thing, through new audio features so that we can up the immersion that sound allows you to get. We added a whole bunch of side missions for your crew members. We've added new magic abilities, new tech, like new cyber weapons, and finally, the big thing was, when we hit 700,000, we were able to revamp the Matrix gameplay, where you can go into cyberspace.
Yeah, I saw that.
Right, and so that's a real big one, and that one was particularly important to us because, you know, we did our best to get the Matrix in. We killed ourselves to get the Matrix in Shadowrun Returns. We upped the gameplay a bit in Dragonfall, but we'd really like to revisit the art and the gameplay in the Matrix to fulfill its original goals. So we were adding a lot of stuff. There's not one key element that we can say this is what Shadowrun Hong Kong, you know, feature-wise is about. So why don't you quickly just, you know, how are we up in our storytelling and that kind of thing?
Well, one of the big ways that we hope to do that is with an increased focus on choice and consequence. You know, we really strove to get a lot of.
Can you strove?
I can strove.
I can
strove all day.
With the best of them?
Yeah. We really strived, striven. Yeah,
I think it's strove. It's a strove fight.
All right, but you're the writer. Keep going.
And actually, before you go on, Andrew, let me just jump in and say, I think you guys need to turn down the stream on your end, or either mute it or something, because it is still kicking back to me a little bit. My speaking. You guys are fine when you're just talking, but
in the room, somebody's going to do something intelligent.
Just because what's happening is I'm hearing myself kick back through when you guys are talking. When I'm talking.
It's just like being on radio.
Yeah.
Is this better?
Let's see. Check 1, 2. Yes. Yes. Lovely. That is wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you
so
to
much.
lovely Jeffrey, who came in and fixed our stuff.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
That's Jeffrey.
All right. Sorry, Andrew. On you go. So, yes. So choice and consequence.
Choice and consequence. I mean, in Dragonfall, we really wanted to put some. I know we've used the phrase morally gray storytelling in there, and
dark gray.
Dark gray. Put a focus on these shades of gray choices that the universe doesn't judge you for. You know, it's just sort of up to you and your conscience as to what choice you want to make and how you want to live with that. Something that we really want to do with Hong Kong is see increased consequence and more ramifications for your actions, to really highlight the importance of your reputation and everything that comes with that.
Wow.
Also, we want to ramp up the feeling of role playing. You know, we're tabletop role players from way back, and you know, we put more and more of that into Dragonfall. But with Hong Kong, we really want you to feel as if you're inhabiting a role in the Shadowrun setting.
Yeah. Now, and we've got a. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Andrew. Go ahead.
And we've got a new team to run with that I'm really excited about.
Oh, absolutely. That's critical.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask about the role-playing question was, how do you guys thread the needle between you know, allowing them to inhabit a role, the sort of the faceless characters from, you know, Half-Life 2, for example, where you play a character, but you're a character that really sort of defines himself through the actions that you take throughout the story. Their problem with that sometimes can be that the character feels somewhat undefined, indistinct, as opposed to a character like Shepard in the Mass Effect series, where it's a very distinctive, you know what you're getting with that guy, and so he feels more realized and thought out, and yet then they're not as invested, you know, in the character.
Right.
So how are you threading the needle? And that's, I guess, starting with Andrew in the writing, but then Mitch, I'd like to have you weigh in too.
Well, I mean, one of the ways that I really like to approach that is, you know, we did a little bit in Dragonfall of letting you sort of define your own past in an early conversation with Dietrich. So that's something that, I mean, that's a tool that worked to our advantage. But beyond that, I mean, it's really through your interactions with others and the choices that you make that you sort of define yourself. And I think it's, you know, I think that it's important, especially for a world like Shadowrun, that you know, you be presented with a lot of different choices, you know, sort of moral choices, social choices, etc. That you know, there is no great arbiter in the sky to tell you whether you did good or bad.
Right.
But it's, you know, it essentially my view on it is we should always give you the opportunity to assert your own agency and define who you are as a person. And those choices will have consequences, but they will be meted out by other people and not by, you know, a UI meter.
Right. And the other thing is beyond consequences, there's another way of looking at it, which is ways of reflecting that back to the player, so that, you know, in conversation, people notice the choices that you're making and comment on them and react to them, and not just through consequences, but just acknowledging that you just did that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it possible for members in your party to become so irritated with you, as if, I'm trying to think of some games that have done this. Baldur's Gate is a good example, where some characters get so irritated they leave, or they get, you know, frustrated. I mean, I wonder how far into the weeds you guys go in terms of mechanical game impacts beyond the obvious that it's affecting the overall world, but does it affect the game mechanically at all, or can it?
Well, we've been you know, we've been playing with different ideas, but I'm not really gonna comment on exactly where we're going with it.
We're making eye contact. The agreement was, you know, we don't talk about Fight Club while on an interview talking about Fight Club.
You know, Mitch, it's really not fair that you come on and it's even your birthday, happy birthday, and you're not even willing to drink some alcohol, so that these silly restrictions and limits that you put on your ability to reveal things is just getting in the way, you know? Like, I wish
the reputation precedes us. And for anybody listening on the third floor, I'm on the second floor without alcohol, and you have access to the stash, and you can bring it down along with 2 glasses.
Please do that immediately, so I can get lots and lots of breaking news he didn't want to reveal. No, I'm just kidding.
Nevertheless, if anybody's up there, I could use a stiff one. So anyway, yeah, you know, we are. The truth is that it's part of it is that, you know, we shouldn't say, because spoilers and things like that. But more importantly, it's because of where we are in production. Right. So we don't want to say something that we're going to change later. Right. Which is a common thing in game development. But what happens often is, you know, people hear about the last thing and they don't necessarily keep up on the project. So their expectations are set for how you said originally you were going to do it versus how, you know, in the harsh light of day, it has to come out.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Absolutely. And that's, you know, one of the things is sort of getting back to the question I started the stream with. You guys are ratcheting up expectations every time. And so you have now, I don't remember what the latest number is, for 17, how many thousands of 17,000? How many backers do you have at this point?
I think we're at 19,000.
19,000 people now who are your closest friends now, who are sort of looking over your shoulder, as it were. Do you guys see that as beyond that? I mean, it's wonderful financial support. Do you see it as intensive pressure to deliver, or is it something that you prefer having those many people on board with you? I mean, you guys are always the dev team, but these folks, especially Shadowrun folks, are very committed, you know, to the world and so on.
Yes, that's one of the great things about making a Shadowrun game is you feel like you're making it for people who actually want it.
Right.
You know, I've been making games for 25-ish years, and a lot of the times in game development, what happens is you're not allowed to talk about the game for 24 months into a 36-month development cycle or something like that,
Yeah.
and you don't know how people are going to react, my man, the booze is here.
Excellent.
Jeffrey again. Wave to the people, Jeffrey.
Well done, Jeffrey. Thanks. Just keep that coming.
This interview brought to you by old number 7, Jack Daniels.
An hour from now, I'm going to appreciate everything about that as I break news across the internet. Anyway.
All right. So anyway, what you're doing is, how's that? You're making games, but you don't know if anybody's going to want it until you announce it. So there's a real emotional benefit to what we're doing. Announcing something, telling people this is exactly what our intentions are. Cheers. But, man, that goes down smooth. But, Kickstarters are obviously, pardon me, a double-edged sword. This is our 3rd Kickstarter. We're used to developing games under the microscope now.
Mm-hmm.
And you could call it pressure, and that would be true. And you could say that it's kind of scary, or it has sort of an edge to it.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that's the fun. I like walking a tightrope in public. How about you?
Yeah, right there with you.
Yeah, it's good. If something scares you, run towards it, not away from it.
Absolutely. It's like definitely there's a pressure to, it's like, hey, we made a good thing, and you want the next better.
Yeah.
You will always want that. I think that you don't want to get yourself into a position where you become paralyzed by that fear of having to one-up yourself the last time. But you want to stay cognizant of it. You don't want to rest on your laurels and just assume everything.
Yeah, actually, wait. You know what? I want to react to one thing. You said one-up yourself, and you just repeated it. And that is not the mindset here. One of the things that I love about Harebrained Schemes is our mindset is always constant improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Every product we make, every release we make, even the patches and things that we put out for our games, we always sneak extra stuff in there because we're just trying to do better as craftsmen, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, of course.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, that's true, and I guess that's a better way of putting this sort of one-upsmanship. It simply means that you guys are always pushing the envelope, which is since the first time I had you guys on the show, has always been my impression, is that you guys are always willing to take calculated risks. But you're willing to sort of push the envelope a little bit with this stuff.
Oh no, we take risks.
We take risks. It may not feel calculated to you, but
it was not hey, I got an idea, kids.
Yeah, it's like a big part of what I meant by one-upping yourself is just learning from your mistakes.
Yeah,
it's like, hey, we did this thing last time and it didn't work as well as I wanted it to. How can we do it better next time?
Absolutely,
let's make a better product.
Yeah, no, that's the glory of this. This is performance art. We're performing for an audience. We have an audience. And every performance, you want to up your game and you want to improve. And when you get to be, by the way, birthday, when you get to be 50, it's like, this isn't stopping time. This is acceleration time.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's one of the great strengths of your studio that there's a lot of fearlessness about it, which I think is much appreciated. I want to jump back to a question about the development cycle that kind of blew me away. And hello to the 150 of you currently in chat. You guys are listening to Mitch Gitleman and Andrew McIntosh from Harebrained Schemes. I'm going to talk about some specifics about the game in a minute. Right now I'm talking about a little bit more general about the Kickstarter and this. The development cycle, Mitch, this thing, you guys are planning to actually release this later this year. Did I read that right? That you guys are going to try to release this later? Because typically I see Kickstarters that are run where they're like, this is great, and here's a Star Citizen. We'll get back to you in 2050. You know what I mean?
Go Chris.
Nothing. And believe me, I would love to have Chris. I'll reach out to you too at some point. But I'm amazed that you guys are able to be that far ahead. How much of the game, in very general terms, of course, are you guys done with? Did you do a lot of it even before the Kickstarter went live, and how did you sort of balance that out?
No, you need to understand. Remember, we're building on a foundation,
right?
And we're building on a foundation that built on that foundation twice, right? So Shadowrun Return, Shadowrun Dragonfall, and Shadowrun Director's Cut. So we've made a lot of updates and upgrades to the engine and our gameplay, and our interface, and we're building on that. We've also, because we've made this game 2.5 times now, our process for making it is much more known. Remember, when we did Shadowrun Returns, the dirty little secret that we don't think is a secret of Shadowrun Returns is when we went out to Kickstarter and said, hey, this is a game we want to make. What do you think? We had nothing. Absolutely nothing. We had a concept document, and that concept document was the Kickstarter page.
Mm-hmm.
This was the Bible of the game. That was it. And we went from zero to ship in 1 year, right? Making the game, making the tool set so other people can make their own Shadowruns, and making the campaign all within a year and getting it shipped. Then with Dragonfall, we had that mature tool set and stuff and more knowledge. And Mike McCain, the game director of Dragonfall, really pushed the gameplay and the storytelling with Andrew up a notch. And then I came in later on the project after they had gotten a great foundation under them. And so now with Hong Kong, our pre-production methodology has really increased, especially Andrew, with how we approach the story. When we did Dragonfall, we had a very different process than the one we have now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you describe the difference? I was just going to say, how has the process changed? Yeah.
Well, I mean, one of the things that we're doing this time around, I mean, it sounds simple enough, but it's just a very different, a much more rigorous approach to outlining.
Mm-hmm.
It's in Dragonfall, we were well into production, and there were some things that changed on a story level for the better. But there were
some fundamental things.
Necessary fundamental improvements. I mean, the removal of some major characters, some major story beat changes, and they were all in service of crafting a better story. But this time around, we're being very cognizant of getting all of that discovery process out of the way up front, so that we don't have to go through that process again. We don't have any wasted work. We want to make sure
wasted work. Yeah, but iteration is king.
Exactly. Iteration is king, and we want to make sure that all of the effort that we put forward winds up on the screen rather than the cutting room floor.
We actually overdeveloped content for Shadowrun Returns and Shadowrun Dragonfall. And this time we're hoping to get closer to the pin from a golf metaphor point of view.
Absolutely. And it certainly helps that we at this point we've got a lot more experience at doing this. We all know the tool set a lot better. We're all, the team is a well-oiled machine. We all work together very well. And, so it's like now it's sort of no longer our first rodeo. We know what we're doing.
And there's one more thing that I forgot to mention earlier, which was before we went to Kickstarter, we had been in pre-production for months, right? Whereas on the other titles, we weren't. So we're further ahead than we are. So do we have we have some scenes created and stuff like that, but we have the complete flow of the game from beginning to end. Of course, we're iterating on that, but we have a much better idea of the locations we're going to, the characters we're creating, the plot points, the motivations, what's driving the player forward, all those things. And of course, we've also done much more pre-production on the features we're going to add to the game, how we're going to make them, who's going to make them, when they're going to come in, et cetera, et cetera. So we're just getting better at making Shadowrun. It's the net of it.
I wonder if I can extend from that to ask, and I promise I'm not going to go too far down this because you want to release the game before you think about other aspects of it, but is it fair to say that perhaps a director's cut of this would be less likely because you want to get closer to the pin? That is to say, you're going to have more or less what you wanted right from the beginning off of that, or is that too much to say? And again, I know you're speaking in generalities here, but
no, that's okay if you don't mind. This is a business one. I'll take this one. So the way we're thinking about it now, there isn't a director's cut on the horizon right now in our heads.
Okay.
Instead, what we're doing is there is a new stretch goal or funding goal past 700,000 The Matrix, the $1 million funding goal
that
we're really excited about.
That mini campaign.
Yeah, it's a mini campaign, and this is really cool. The idea that you could take your really powerful sort of prime runner character from Shadowrun Hong Kong and import that character into this new super challenging high level, for lack of a better word, campaign, and keep going with it. It's tuned for that level of character. So we're excited about that. Beyond that, no thinking really about a director's cut right now. The director's cut for us was we realized, we could do better, we could do more. We wanted to build on the success of Dragonfall and set ourselves up for Hong Kong and what might be beyond.
Absolutely. Well, and there were some story threads that we established in Dragonfall that we really wanted to pay off.
Right.
It's we had the bandwidth, we had the time.
Yeah, partly it was for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
There were some endings we wanted to get in.
Exactly. Things that we just did
like
not
that.
have time to do on the original release.
Yeah, glorious mission.
I was just going to say that character development for Glory, yeah. I'm going to ask Andrew in a minute about plot and characters here, but before I do that, I do want to ask about stretch goals. I will fully go on the record here as saying that I would absolutely rock that messenger bag, even in a classroom that I walk into. That thing is amazing. I don't care if it's concept art on the front of it. Do want. I just want to say...
It's thanks. And by the way, it says concept art because we're cautious people. It should look very close to that.
That bag is just But I'm curious because you mentioned in the process of talking about it that their physical rewards are something you need to be careful about, right, in shipping, because you don't want to overdo. You don't want to have what happened to Steve Jackson in his Ogre Kickstarter, where they almost bankrupted themselves because of all the physical shipping costs. I've seen that happen in my own much smaller scale Kickstarter that I did last year. So I'm curious if you could talk more about that, how you decided what things would work as stretch goals, what things would work as sort of physical rewards, and how you all sort of kind of massaged that, I guess, in getting the final product.
Sure. This is actually one of the things I'm proudest about working at Harebrained Schemes, because everything we do, front to back, everything we release, whether it's a Kickstarter, whether it's a game, whether it's even an update to Kickstarter, just a writing thing, it's very, very collaborative. So a lot of hands touch every single thing we do. So I just want to point that out right away. So, for the physical rewards, that was a lesson learned the hard way. And, some of the things that Jordan and I put into the original Shadowrun Returns Kickstarter, weren't planned out to the nth degree, because certainly at that point especially, that's not the type of people we were. But we got really excited and caught up in Kickstarter fever. Yep. If you remember, when we did that first Kickstarter, we were I think number 3. Yeah, we were the number 3 Kickstarter over $1 million for video games.
Yep.
So it was a new path, and nobody had really proved it out yet. And we had a spreadsheet that showed, just how much we could spend on it. And, we made many, many errors in calculations. But the other thing that we did not calculate well enough for that one and for the Golem Arcana Kickstarter was the amount of effort it took for the team to fulfill those physical rewards, to get all the data they needed from their backers, to transmit the information to the backers, to do customer service support, to fix problems. It was incredibly time-consuming. And because our Kickstarter backers are our core audience, we were absolutely dedicated to going above and beyond to service their needs. Mm-hmm. And it nearly killed us. So this time around, I had some very specific feedback about how to run a Kickstarter that I took very, very seriously from the people that really did the work to fulfill those physical rewards. So at first, we had a mandate that I put in, which was no physical rewards of any kind. And we started there, and I quickly realized that, there are different audiences on Kickstarter. Some people are there because they're passionate about the project. Some people are there, and they're altruistic about it. And some people are there because it's sort of a pre-order type thing, and they want to get in early, and see those additional features added. There are other people that are really there because they're looking for the rewards, and they want something for their hard-earned dollars that they're supporting us with. So we had to do the messenger bag and also the figurines. Mm-hmm. And I'm really proud of the messenger bag because
it's a great bag.
That was the very first. Thank you. It's the first thing we thought of, and we said, you know what? No matter who you are, whether you're regardless of gender, etc., a messenger bag anybody can use.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we didn't fancy it up or anything. It's just like this clean sort of embossed Shadowrun logo. So we tried for a modicum of class, and it went over really well. And then the figurines, well, we do Golem Arcana. You know, we know how to make these figures, and we know how to make really high quality ones. Why don't we use that pipeline we developed to give people what they wanted? And because of the way they reacted so positively to the characters that Andrew created the first time, we thought basing them on those characters was a wise thing to do.
Yep.
How's this for an answer? Is this getting
it's very good, and I assume it ties in also a little bit, just a little bit to Golem Arcana, or at least it reminds people of the figurine tabletop aspect of your other project. I mean, I don't know if you had that in your mind, but that is a nice sort of side effect.
Oh yeah. No. You know, I'm a showman a little bit and a marketer at heart, a salesman at heart. I come from a family of salespeople. I can't help it.
No, listen. As we've said, you guys need to be able to keep also the creative geniuses going. Getting them all fed and paid helps too. So you're both, Mitch.
Yeah, you know what? One of the best things to do if you're running a game development studio is to pay people.
Yeah, we're all big fans of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100% approval. Okay. So the last thing that I want to ask before we get into it, then I want to ask about characters and plot. And chat again. Thank you all so much for being here. Closing in now on 200 people in the stream. I want to say hi to, again, everyone who's here. Thank you so much. And remind everyone, I am speaking to Andrew McIntosh, the lead writer for Shadowrun Returns Hong Kong, and Mitch Gitleman, who is the head of the studio, basically. And I want to thank them again for being on with me for the third time now. Well, Mitch's third time, Andrew's second, but Mitch's third time on with me. And if you have questions yourselves, please hold them when I open it up to chat, and I promise I will in a few minutes. Then you can do exactly what Blake did, which is just put question in all caps, followed with the actual question you'd like to ask. I will field and send as many of them along as I possibly can. Also, gentlemen, you know, as always, I never want to keep people longer than an hour, but it's up to you. I have a sense you may be answering questions for a while when we get to them, so I'm just letting you know that may happen, and feel free to say, oh my God, Arv, please, you know, exhaustion has set in, and please stop. But I'm just I'm letting you know in advance that you will get people asking lots of questions. So I give you permission to bail out.
Direct. No, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. All right. So then I think the only other thing that I wanted to ask about it was about the Kickstarter part, and then I want to get into the characters and plot with Andrew. Is there a concern, and this concern has been raised sometimes with Kickstarters, I mentioned the Star Citizen one before, is there a concern of feature creep? That is to say, let's say that you guys hit 1 million, which I am confident you will do. Let's say that you guys hit 1 million, you blow past it, right? And now you're at 25,000 backers or some absurd number, and you just, you know, like the Price is Right thing, just keeps soaring up and up and up. I assume that you guys will want to add other goals, but I'm wondering at what point you're going to say, okay, we can add these many goals. Like, would you do another mini campaign? Would you do other characters? Have you thought about what happens then? And is there a point where you have to say, thank you so much, you guys will also get the game, but you know, we don't want to add more because we're afraid of losing, you know, control over what it is that we have. If that makes sense.
Well, one thing is, I'm not afraid. Yeah, I'm not afraid of this at all, because now that we understand, you know, better how to run Kickstarters, and having run 2 successful ones, and having the experience of making 2.5 Shadowruns, we've got a real good idea what we're doing, what we want to make, and what we're about.
Right.
We have absolutely hit the limit for what we're going to add to this campaign.
Okay.
And I'm really proud of, and I think the team is also proud of, the discipline that we brought to this Kickstarter and to this pre-production process. So there is no risk of bloating beyond this, because we're just not doing it. And the team's committed to it. I'm absolutely committed to it. Jordan, the creative director and CEO of the studio, you know, is completely behind us 100% of the way. And my CFO especially, Joe D'Annunzio, completely behind that.
I'll bet.
So, you know, we entered this whole process with a plan. We executed on the plan the way we intended to. For some weird reason, it worked the way we planned it to, which rarely happens.
Once in a while, I guess.
You know, yeah, knock on wood for that one. So if we were lucky enough to extend beyond $1 million, anything we did beyond that, assuming that we added anything, and yes, we do have a plan that, of course, I'm not going to tell you, but if we were to exceed that, we would not adding things to the core game that we have already signed up for and are at capacity to deliver. Anything beyond this, we would require more team members to accomplish.
Okay.
We have, because of the stretch goals, we had people already identified to add to the team. We've added them to the team, right? And that's it. Beyond that, it becomes a command and control issue, right? Which is not the way to make a focused, highly polished game. So we're just not doing it.
Okay. Could you see yourself down the line? This is, I guess, a question about the franchise, because it seems to me like that's where we're headed with this. If you guys continue to produce games this successful and this well done, I mean, for me, the Dragonfall last year was one of the top 3 games for me, and I think anyone who played it felt the same way. It was a tremendously well written, which you get a lot of credit for, of course, Andrew. Tremendously well written. But,
yeah. No, we all give him credit for that.
It was tremendously well written, but it was also just exceptionally well. It's just a tremendously well presented game. So, if this, assuming Hong Kong goes off as well as I would expect it to, is there going to be a point, Mitch, where you're going to think about maybe expanding and adding more people in as more games become options for you down the line? Because you know that people are not going away. They're going to love the hell out of this game, and they're going to be like, thank God, please give us Shadowrun Chicago, Shadowrun Santa Fe. No, please give us Shadowrun something.
Santa Fe. That's not a location we had considered before. But thanks for that suggestion.
Sure.
Put it with others.
Yeah.
But yes, we have. In my heart of hearts, I love Shadowrun. I've loved Shadowrun since I bought it from Jordan at Gen Con in 1989.
That's a great story.
Hardcover. It was too expensive at $28. Still pissed about that. I would love nothing more than to continue telling stories in this setting and going around the world and exploring how a cyberpunk future where magic returns, what that does to a culture and how that culture reacts and stuff like that. As a storyteller or a fledgling storyteller, wow, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
Right? And because there's so much over the last 25 plus years written about the Shadowrun setting, there's so much for Andrew and I and the rest of the team to bounce off of that it's just a joy to create within. A lot of people ask us, is it a straitjacket? And the answer is absolutely not.
No, absolutely not. No, I mean, having all of that existing canon really frees you up to write some. I mean, you can really delve deep into sort of using that existing structure. Let's explore how this might affect this aspect of society, or let's take a look at these real-world issues and bounce them off of this crazy magical thing that has happened. I mean, science fiction has been doing this forever.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's a really fertile, sort of environment to play in. I sort of look at it as, akin to, if you take an artist and tell them, hey, just do whatever you want, you can sort of float around because you have no structure.
Right. Sure.
But as soon as you impose a few limitations, well, that gives you something to bounce off of. That spurs creativity.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That sort of, the walls are what give you that. Absolutely. Yeah. I talk about this in class all the time.
Creativity from constraints. Absolutely.
Constraints, but I haven't completely answered your question.
Right,
let me just say this, because I'm not trying to avoid this, because I would just say I'm not going to answer that. We don't know what the future of Harebrained Schemes is. We're making 3 games right now simultaneously, and we've scaled to accomplish that. And I'm really proud of that. There's no shortage of love for Shadowrun. The question is, what kind of audience is there? What are the economics of it? But also, if we're really going to do Shadowrun the service it really deserves, I'm not sure how far this engine will take us to go as far as we want to go with it. So if we were to do perhaps another one or the one after, we would have to take a serious step back, do some re-architecture and really rebuild. And so that'll take a little longer and it'll take more money. So just something to consider.
That's interesting, though, that there is, so it could be at some point an engine upgrade or reboot that would be necessary to continue the vision forward, I suppose. Although that's obviously long. I know that's long term, but, you know.
Well, you know, long term in game development is the next 6 months. But
Right.
At least in Harebrained Schemes life, you know, we're just the little guys in a great big world. But yeah, to go where I think is wise to go, I think a further investment in a core technology is required.
Yeah, and it's interesting that one thing you mentioned before that I hadn't commented on is it's true that your success in the Kickstarter arena was enormously important for the industry. You know, that there are a large number of games now that are going through the Kickstarter process. I was chatting a little bit with the folks who are going to be doing Ultima Ascendant, which is the new Ultima Underworld thing,
Yep,
and I'm hopefully going to be able to get them on the stream as well when that goes live. And that, you know, that game's not conceivable to me for them to do if Shadowrun doesn't have the effect that it has. And it helps that, of course, Shadowrun had a base outside of just video gaming. But nonetheless, you know, you guys had an enormous impact on the landscape, you know, and I imagine you already know that, but that you deserve credit for that too. I mean, that you guys managed to make this impact for all other video games, not just Shadowrun, that want to go through the crowdsourced model. So you guys deserve kudos for that.
Thank you. That is absolutely nothing that we think about.
That's fine.
Yeah, maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but that does not come into our thinking at all.
No, nor should it. But it comes into mind.
No.
Yeah.
Appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, no, definitely. All right, Andrew, let me turn to you and ask a little bit about some of the characters here. In fact, what I probably should have done, I should have done this already. I thought about actually doing some a gameplay while I was talking to you, but I think it might be better actually for me to show a couple of pictures here of some of these guys. So let me see if
we don't have videos. So.
Yeah, we can't see what you're showing people.
Are you guys? Well, one thing you might be able to do. Can you guys check the? Are you able to get onto the stream? It'll be delayed, but if you just put on the stream and muted it, that would allow you to see what I'm doing.
I'm gonna give that to Andrew to do because I barely know how to use like Google Docs. So give it a minute.
Go ahead and fumble at the computer for a minute.
Okay. While you're fumbling, then. I should probably not be asking you questions actually while you're fumbling. But I was.
No. Who? Yeah. It depends on who fumbles and who talks.
Right.
This is the fun part of this whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. Who fumbles and who talks is right.
Well, we look like morons.
let me ask. Let me ask then. All right, I'm pulling up your Kickstarter now, so I can do this more easily. Andrew, let me ask you about first of all some of these individual characters. And then about the overall story arc that you wanted to construct. So beginning with this character, and I will admit, I am a fan of your games. I was not a huge Shadowrun person before. I've gotten much more into Shadowrun actually because of these games. I kind of went the other direction. But so some of these ones I may not know the kind of backstory on, but are all of the new crew that you're running with, these are all brand new original characters, Andrew? Like never before seen, etc., or are they tied into previous lore?
Well, one of them got a brief mention. He got a cameo in Dragonfall Director's Cut in the most recent patch, actually. You can talk to Lucky Strike and ask about the crew that she runs with. And she mentions that one of her crewmates is a rigger from the Russian Republic who built his own drone named Raptor.
Okay.
And so you will, I mean, that's just a little intentional cameo there. And yeah, I mean, it's fair to say that over the course of this game, you'll get to learn how Raptor went from running in Berlin with Lucky Strike to Hong Kong 2 years later.
Gotcha. Okay.
But everybody else is original.
Right.
Everyone else is totally original. All right. Well,
yeah. He got one throwaway line.
Yeah.
Well, let's pop up. So the first one that I'm popping up here, which you might be able to see when your incredible tech guru, Jeffrey, takes care of it, is Gobbit, the rat shaman. So, Andrew, let me start with asking you about him. Tell me, I beg your pardon, her, sorry. Summarize her for me quickly. What do I need to know? What are sort of the basics of how she ticks?
I mean, as far as, again, without wanting to get too far
I understand. As much, right, without avoiding spoilers.
So, yeah, I mean, she is a shaman. She is devoted to the totem rat. Rat is an urban totem. There we go. We can see you now. Yeah, Rat is.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks.
Yep, no problem.
Thanks
We
again,
love
Jeff.
Jeff.
So yeah, I mean, Rat is an urban totem that actually enjoys the sprawl. It it sort of takes a look at the this sort of sprawl environment that man has created and looks at it as its own.
Right.
As far as Gobbet herself is concerned, her sort of philosophically, she's an absurdist. So it's essentially.
You're so intellectual.
Well, it's like nihilism's friendlier cousin. She acknowledges that there's no point to anything, but that's not actually a big deal, and so there's no reason to get upset about it.
I see. And actually, before I go on with asking a couple questions about the other characters, did you consider, because the team in Dragonfall was so popular, the characters were awesome. I was a huge Dietrich fan, my favorite character of all of them. But of course, all of them, Glory, and they were great, Iger. So I'm curious about, was there any thought of, let's keep their adventure going and continue with that team, or did you say, nope, we absolutely have to do this brand new? And I just wonder how that decision was made.
Well, I mean, I think I myself wanted to start up fresh with a new team. And the reason why is because we wanted to take you to a different part of the Shadowrun universe. And the world starts to feel very, very small if the same people keep popping up all over the place. This is a large world with many, many people, a lot of them in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And they all come from different walks of life. I mean, there is something interesting that you can do with taking someone who spent time in Berlin and relocating them to Hong Kong, seeing that culture shock.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also interesting to take a look at locals or people who've been living in Hong Kong for a while but come from immigrant backgrounds, which is sort of Isabel's situation.
Right.
And so for me personally, at least, getting to introduce people to a whole new crew of sort of Hong Kong centered runners to interact with and bounce off of and get to learn in the same way that you learned the backstories and personalities and the personal tics of the various members of the Berlin crew. That's one of the really enticing things about doing a new campaign.
Right, and then to add to that, when you think of Shadowrun thematically, right, you're very little people in a great big world.
Absolutely.
Mega corporations control everything. There are ancient dragons, etc.
Right.
And to think that these characters are so important that they're flowing from story to story is not, I believe, what Shadowrun's really about.
I agree with that assessment. I think that almost by definition, Shadowrunners are not heroes, and as they start getting too big for their britches, they're probably not long for this world.
Shadowrunners are disposable assets.
Exactly.
That's very interesting, and I think that seems very logical to me. All right, one more time, I will mention to everybody in chat. Hello to everyone. Wonderful to see such a great turnout. I am interviewing Andrew McIntosh and Mitch Gitleman from Harebrained Schemes about the new Shadowrun Returns Hong Kong, and I'm just going through a couple of the characters. Then I want to ask Andrew about the plot arc, and then I promise I will open up questions to you folks, so hang tight, and I will definitely open it up to you in just a moment. All right, Andrew, what about Duncan Wu, the security specialist? What can you say spoiler-free about him?
Very little.
There's not a lot that I can give away about him, unfortunately, although, I mean, you will note that he's... trying to figure out what I can actually tell you here. I can feel the weight of Mitch's stare.
Well, you can tell me everything. Mitch has had some Jack Daniels now. You can tell me everything.
Yes. Okay. So yes, he is a. I mean, I don't know if Chinese American is even the right term. He is a UCAS native of Chinese descent.
Right. Ooh, that was very Shadowrun appropriate.
Yes. So you'll get to see some interesting interaction between. Someone who is identified culturally as Chinese in the UCAS, relocating to Hong Kong and interacting with people
who are Chinese,
who are genuinely Chinese,
and living in Hong Kong.
As in, well, and the thing is that Hong Kong isn't really a part of China and Shadowrun either.
Right.
There are going to be lots of fun opportunities for culture shock.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And again, it comes back to that bouncing thing that Andrew was talking about before. One of the things that happens if you play tabletop role-playing games the way that we do, we create these characters to be interesting characters and also to have interesting interactions with the other characters. Honestly, then we create the story and see how those characters bounce off of and react to the story we're creating.
Absolutely. We create a team of strong personalities first and then put them in an environment to bounce off of.
Yeah.
Interesting, yeah, and it shows how much you guys really privilege the universe as its own character entity, sort of prevailing force, as opposed to a game like Dungeons and Dragons, where the focus really is the characters and the heroes. Here, the world is the amazingness of the world really is here. The characters matter, but they matter insofar as they are sort of connected to, affected by, bowled over by the world around them. Is that fair to say? That sort of differentiates?
Like people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the things that are really important to me as a writer are treating your characters as real people. I mean, yeah, sure.
With respect.
With respect, exactly. I mean, sure, she's an orc or he's a troll or what have you, but they're people. And, they have their own, list of things that they want, their list of things they need, and then the damage that's keeping them from getting those things. And, it's the Shadowrun universe. I really gravitate toward it over a D&D style setting. I love D&D too, but absolutely grew up playing it. But I mean, one of the things that I love about the Shadowrun universe is that because it is drawn from, admittedly a 1980s understanding of the world, but because it is drawn from the real world, there are enough familiar, recognizable aspects to it that you have things that you can grab onto. It's like there's buy-in because you can recognize this or that thing from your own world.
Yep.
And so it's there's not as big of a leap to form an emotional connection. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I'll throw in myself that I am not a fan most of the time of I run into as you know, I write fantasy and science fiction, so I run into quite a bit dystopic fiction and the like, and I generally don't like it. Shadowrun is a notable exception because it seems that it has I don't know how to put it. It never feels quite as dark to me. Maybe the addition of dragons and orcs makes that easier, but it's not. It seems to me a more fascinating world than a bleak, why are we even bothering to march through this disastrous landscape of death? There's, and I think that gets back to that grounded nature. There's serious problems, but there's a world that can still have you carve out a place in it that's functional.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely love Shadowrun, but I didn't love it as much as I do now, having really worked within it. I played it as a player and as a play tester, in the very early 90s, and I always thought of it as, it's tech and magic combined. But now that we actually have our shot to make stories within it, the reason why I think the dystopia doesn't feel so bleak and horrible is because the dystopia is just like our world right now. If you step back from what's going on in our world right now, and you look at things that are going on in the Mideast, things that are going on in Russia, things that are going on and the place that nobody talks about, which is, Africa, right? Which so many things are going on that aren't reported. And yet we're having fun, and yet there's comedy, and yet there are people going about their daily lives within this really harsh reality.
Right.
That's what Shadowrun is to me, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Because it's about characters and how they react to the world being the way it is.
Yep. Right. Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I mean, I would also say that one thing that separates Shadowrun from a lot of cyberpunk fiction is because of the existence of magic, because of all of that, there's this sort of element of the uncanny where that there is more going on than you can see. That the universe has more potential than just the grimdark thing that is in front of you. And that in and of itself is, I mean, even if the magic can be really cruel, that is an inherently optimistic thing, I think, to me at least.
Well, we're optimists. I know that. I know we share that.
Yeah, no, it's that's really interesting. And by the way, a study of history will say that it was ever thus that the world is pretty screwed up, but people somehow have found a way to soldier on nonetheless.
Absolutely.
If you read people talking about the times they live in, they all talk about it being the end times.
Oh, absolutely. It doesn't matter what period of history you go to. There's going to be a group of people convinced that the world's going to end tomorrow.
Because we screwed it all up.
Yeah, there's a thing that was the quote was more or less. The world is falling apart. People don't care, and children don't listen to their parents. And that was found on a piece of papyrus in an Egyptian pyramid. So
we know that one.
It was ever thus, right? Okay, let me, Andrew. Let me ask. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just doing the talking.
Well, I know you were. I respect that.
Thank you.
Let me ask about Isabel, the person that you said I can't talk about. But I'm now you've had the alcohol's had more time to affect you, so hopefully you'll have forgotten that already.
It affected me. I don't know how he's doing.
Well, I mean, there are some things that I can say about Isabel. So Isabel, she is a Hong Kong native, but she was born to a family of first-generation immigrants from what is now Somalia. In the Shadowrun period, it's the name escapes me.
Yeah, that's embarrassing.
Sorry. There's a collection of sort of African countries, one of which is present-day Somalia, that her parents are from. As in Shadowrun, things are pretty tough in Africa. There's a lot of stuff going down. She. There were many waves of immigration into Hong Kong in the Shadowrun timeline from sort of all over Asia, Africa, just waves upon waves of immigrants coming in as hostilities break out all over the rest of Asia. Really, Hong Kong is kind of like a Casablanca.
Is Hong Kong? Let me just jump in for a second. Is Hong Kong still Chinese controlled in the Shadowrun timeline? I'm not familiar. Is it still, or is it, or what?
Shadowrun in Shadowrun timeline, with the aid of the British, Hong Kong has become Hong Kong has become a sort of a free enterprise zone.
Okay.
It's not controlled by China. It wasn't taken back by China.
Right. It is essentially it is controlled by a conjunction of corporations and financial interests.
Gotcha. Okay. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to jump in, Andrew. I just wanted to know as we were talking about that.
So, Isabel.
Yes, Isabel. So yeah, I mean, through Isabel, you will have someone in your group who speaks to that experience of sort of growing up on the very low economic scale in Hong Kong
and the immigrant experience.
And the immigrant experience, exactly. And you will get through all of the characters in both in Dragonfall and then in Hong Kong, what I really want to do is provide sort of windows to different aspects of life in the world of Shadowrun.
Absolutely.
Different areas of the world, etc. I mean, so yeah, I'm very much looking forward to exploring her character.
Yeah, absolutely. She's great.
Awesome. All right. What about Ractor? Or am I pronouncing that right? Ractor?
Yeah, Raptor.
Yeah, Raptor. Mm-hmm.
Raptor.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, Ractor. First generation immigrant from the Russian Republic. Looking forward to writing him very much. Exploring him. I mean, he's a roboticist who built his own drone, and his drone is really.
I'm wondering what you're going to say. Keep going.
What I was going to say is, that. His drone is primarily how he will, sort of interact in through his drone and in encounters, that kind of thing.
Okay.
We're really excited about Raptor's the one that makes us giggle.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got lots of fun stuff planned for him.
That we're not telling you.
Well, I'm doing what I can. Okay,
yeah, and he's excited. The entire team is like, yeah, Raptor, yeah.
And then the last one is, please, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Gaichu. Is that right, Gaichu? Or close?
I cannot comment on the correct pronunciation.
We're not dumb enough to comment on that.
But I believe that you're correct.
But yeah, it's written that way, that's for sure.
Exactly. He is a former Renraku Red Samurai. The Renraku Red Samurai are an elite security force that the Renraku Corporation keeps on staff. They are, sort of notable in that They are ruthless. They're kind of the ultimate badasses. They are also 100% for human and Japanese. And when Rapture became infected with HMHBV, the human metahuman vampiric virus,
bravo,
that caused that led to some predictable problems.
Interesting. This is like a great combination team. Just like looking at all the different personalities that are involved here. It's sort of classic Shadowrun in the sense that it's like let's put a bunch of people with zero coherency in terms they would never work together, and therefore they're Shadowrunners. So it's perfect because they.
It reflects our experience playing the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Andrew, then maybe you can talk to me a little bit. You talked about choice and consequences, but I wonder if we could just drill down a bit more and talk about sort of how you conceived of the overall plot arc and sort of what you were thinking about as you were in the process of going through it. I'd also be interested to hear if Mitch and Jordan and the rest of the team sort of gave you some thoughts about this is sort of how we'd like to imagine it, because I thought Dragonfall did such a good job in not only conveying character but gradually, you know, introducing aspects of the mystery of who everyone was and all that stuff, and what was at the sort of core of this original attack that had killed Monica and all that. So I'm wondering about what your sort of principles were as you were going through it this time. Is there anything, you can't reveal the plot, but can you talk about like some of what your principles were as you were in the process of writing it, since this was more on you this time also as like the lead guy to begin with, right?
Sure. Well, yeah, and I'm going to be pretty guarded about how I answer this question because obviously
nonsense. No, just kidding.
But I mean, one thing I will say is, I mean, you asked whether I sought feedback from Mitch, Jordan, others. I'm in constant contact with Mitch and the rest of the design team. We're always iterating. We're always getting everybody's feedback because we all love Shadowrun and we work well together. And you know, it's like, you know, you don't want to work in a vacuum. It's all iterative, and all of this feedback is really valuable.
Our art team too, actually.
Yeah, our team as well, absolutely.
And that's sorry, real fast, just to jump in. That's something that we're really proud of. You know, I've been many games videos where it's like, that's your job, this is my job, this is my dance space, and stay the hell out. And for us, it's all about what makes the superior experience for the player, and everybo's ideas are listened to.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, the plot.
Yeah. Sorry. I mean, the plot. I mean, I'm trying to think of what I can discuss. I mean, one thing that we do mention in our Kickstarter video is.
What is what? Go ahead. It's in the video.
It's in the video. We mentioned that you're going to be brought into the shadows from the outside.
Yeah, we do say that.
So we do mention that, and to expound a little bit on that, this is going to be the first of our games where you do not begin as a veteran Shadowrunner. You begin the game coming from a different walk of life, and you know, sort of having that you know, fish out of water, stranger in a strange land experience, and that provides a really interesting, different perspective to tell a story from.
What are the challenges then for you, Andrew, writing a story like this so that you don't go over the same sort of ground? I mean, it's an incredibly rich universe, and it's funny that it's only at this point that you go to the Shadowrun origin story. You know, it's normally you'd expect to sort of start with that, but you guys actually worked with a veteran Shadowrun first, and then went back to the, as you just said, the learning about the craft. But what are the sort of challenges for you this time around? I mean, you didn't work on the first one, but you did work on Dragonfall, so you were obviously the lead writer for that. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about the challenges of producing something like this from a writing point of view. We've talked about the technical stuff, but what about the writing?
Well, there are a few major differences between my experience with Hong Kong and with Dragonfall. In Dragonfall, when I first came onto the project, there was the skeleton of an outline that had already been, you know, sort of hashed out. Like, these are major beats. We don't know how does this all plug together, but we think maybe this is kind of what we want to have happen. And there was some really great work done on that. So in my, you know, sort of when I first signed on, I was tasked with taking a look at that and seeing what I could do to help, you know, with the, you know, it was sort of a writer's room of myself and Mitch and Mike McCain, you know, to sort of take these ideas and put them together in a way
make
that
them work.
Ultimately satisfy.
Here's the framework, make this work.
and brought stuff to the table.
Oh, yeah.
And with Shadowrun Hong Kong, there was no such document. We were coming at it from whole cloth. I will. Yeah, I mean, like the beginning of the process just involved pouring through the Shadowrun source material, reading up on everything related to Hong Kong that I could find. Most of what is written in the canon about Hong Kong is set in the 2070s. And so that's an interesting challenge. It's like, well, this is going to be years. So what's it like in 2056? I mean, there has been some stuff written about Hong Kong in the 2050s, but not a ton. So, I mean, there are a number of writing challenges that, sort of made this fundamentally different from Dragonfall, but there are similarities as well in that, my time as a player, I was primarily doing runs based out of Seattle. Seattle's the core setting I'm really familiar with.
Sure.
So in both cases, I mean, for Dragonfall, I really had to read up on Berlin and see what the world is like there, and I'm doing the same thing again with Hong Kong.
Okay, really interesting. Yeah, so just a quick, guys, the occasional, we get an occasional dropout with Skype. That's Skype being Skype. There's nothing that anybody can do anywhere about that. So apologies, but that just happens. And it's been coming back pretty fast. All right, well, last question from me before I open it up to chat and the hordes of questions come in. Just a quick thank you to the 182 of you so far in here watching this. Really, really great, as I expected there would be. Really great sort of passion and excitement about this. I am interviewing Andrew McIntosh and Mitch Gitleman, Andrew for the second time, Mitch for the third, about Shadowrun Returns Hong Kong, their phenomenal Kickstarter that is doing incredibly well. Last question from me, I guess, Andrew, is were there... and actually, I'm sorry. One question to you, one question about the art style, and then I'll let Chad ask. But first, were there specific influences to this story arc that either other Shadowrun worlds or other, novels, books, worlds that you've read before in fantasy science fiction, as opposed to what inspired you for something like Dragonfall? Or were you the same, was it the same sort of stuff that was influencing both?
I will say that I took tremendous influence from the 2070s material written about Hong Kong.
Okay.
I know that's a boring answer, but I mean, it's like if you read source books, there are so many, plot hooks and ideas and concepts that are introduced and really fully fleshed out.
Yep.
That you can really, I mean, it works every time.
And that's why they're written that way. Having written source books,
absolutely,
your job as a source book author is to inspire game masters.
Yep.
And to the credit of the authors of the Shadowrun source material, they're inspiring us.
Absolutely. I mean, funny enough, it's exactly like writing. I mean, it is much more elaborate, much more involved, and there's a larger team. But essentially, it's much like GMing a game.
Preparing for GMing a game.
Exactly.
Yeah, without a doubt. And the other thing to add to that is why we put some of those old school Shadowrun source books into our Kickstarter reward tiers, because there's so much cool world information that we want people to be exposed to who may not be, because they're not tabletop gamers, but they're good reads.
Mm-hmm.
And they're worth having.
And some of these books are out of print.
Oh yeah. A lot of Kickstarter are out of print too. So and that's stuff that I'll say grew up with, but I was kind of an adult.
I grew up with it.
Thanks for that. I appreciate it.
Anytime. But I mean, we have a real love for the 2050s Shadowrun setting. That's what we both, sort of came up playing. And
well, also it's just that sort of proximity to Jordan. You sort of get that magnetic pull to 2050s because he's here.
Absolutely. Well, and there's something really endearing about a science fiction world where there's no such thing as Wi-Fi. It's the 2050s, thick braided cable.
Badass.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's taking that sort of nostalgic playground from when I first started playing Shadowrun, and those old books that you can't really find anymore, and dusting those off and getting into it.
I will put in a plug for my friend John Helfers, which regular viewers to my channel will know is the guy who is a editor now, a freelance editor and an author. He was the guy who actually purchased my first novel, Lo, these many years ago. And John, of course, was the editor of the anthology that came with the original Shadowrun Returns. And so the writing has always been one of the great strong points, I think, in Shadowrun. You know, my personal preference has always been straight fantasy, but I think in terms of coherency, I've always felt that the Shadowrun universe really takes this crazy chaotic world and manages to write it very well all the time. and so I think Shadowrun really has some of the overall strongest writing that you'll get in any of these universes. And so I want to put in a plug for the writers who came before and who are doing this on the more straight fiction side, not just the game side too. So I wanted to throw that in there. All right. Well, now I think now we are ready to throw this open. Now, the way this is going to work, chat, is I'm going to ask everybody to ask other questions by putting in capital letters question, then colon, then the question you want asked. I will do the best I can. I don't want these guys to stay on for 6 hours, though. So I will do the best I can to get through them. If your question doesn't get asked, please forgive me. These people are wonderful people, and it's great they're giving us the opportunity, but I will do the best I can with it. So with that said, feel free to ask me those questions, and I will run through them. And the first one comes running through immediately. Buster of War asks, question, have you ever considered Divinity Original Sin style co-op for Shadowrun? I will admit to being an enormous co-op fan, and so I know you don't want to sort of step on the toes of Shadowrun Online, but I'm curious about, has there ever been a thought about co-op or allowing a mod for co-op, or is that just not possible given the system?
So Jordan and I have discussed co-op many times, including during the original Kickstarter, where during in an update video he said, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did co-op? And we had to come back the next day and say, we're not doing co-op.
It would be cool, but no.
We got really excited, but yeah, no. We are fans of co-op. I play a fair amount of co-op games in my personal life, which is thin to none. And I would love to do co-op. We're not doing co-op for this one. It's not going to be an additional funding goal. Just make sure this engine is not set up for co-op. And that's an example of why I say in the future, if we are lucky enough to return to Shadowrun RPGs, we need a rewrite of the engine to allow for things like that. And that, just to be clear, that is not anything like a commitment.
Right.
So, but yeah, co-op is awesome. Yeah, I think co-op kicks so much ass. I play more co-op than I do single player, and more co-op personally than I do multiplayer.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I love co-op. I also love a really richly detailed single player experience, and that's where my headspace is. So, I mean, for me, what we're doing is exactly what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
And in the future, if we were to attack co-op, what I would say is we attack co-op from the same way that we attack a single-player experience. Mm-hmm. And if we can find a way of making that single-player experience broaden from an RPG point of view to multiple players, that's really cool.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's like we've done a co-op run on my stream with some other streamers here of some of the Infinity Engine games, the Baldur's Gates, Icewind Dale, and there is just something, and I've been playing with one of the people on here, Series Runner, who's another streamer here, and I have played this Divinity Original Sin co-op, and yeah, it sort of gets me back to my roots of going over to my friend's house and watching him play Dragon Warrior on Nintendo. You know, there's a old school feel about that, which is different from MMO. I noticed someone had posted, please God, no MMO elements, and I'm pretty confident that we're not going to see fetch quests, showing up in
Shadowrun. Trust the Force, Luke. That ain't happening.
I mean, I know what you're talking about in terms of the, your Dragon Warrior experience. My buddy Scott and I, back in Santa Barbara, way back in the day, played through the entirety of Planescape Torment that way.
Yep.
So, it's I can totally appreciate that if you're playing with the right group, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
One thing I had forgot, I had said that I was going to ask this question, I forgot about it. A quick one for you, Mitch, about the art style. I noticed there's been some feedback that people, originally they did Hong Kong, then they felt that it was too touristy, I believe was the comment, and tried to adjust it a little bit. And then I noticed there are other people who have been questioning or asking about whether of the Hong Kong skyline and so forth. how you're going to make it even more distinctive from what was given to us in Berlin and in Seattle. So I just wanted to give you a chance to comment on that. You may think that it's not a concern and that, it's fine, but I'm just curious if, capturing Hong Kong as Hong Kong, its own unique place. I wondered if you wanted to speak about that from an art style.
Oh, sure. Well, to start with, in the last update that we wrote, we talked about how the first draft of our concept art for Hong Kong that we released during our Kickstarter, both in concept art and sort of an isometric gameplay view, our first draft of it was touristy, but that was a very fast draft. We brought it into our art crit meeting where everybody sits around, all the artists and me sit around in a room and discuss, where we want to take that. And the first draft was clearly too touristy, and we immediately moved away from it. So I don't feel that is an issue, because that was one of the very first things that the art director, Chris Rogers, and I made very clear to the environment team. So I'm not worried about that. What we are worried about is authenticity.
Right.
And that's why we have people, in Hong Kong helping us out. Oh, hey, a note from Jeffrey, our brilliant
This just in.
John Helfers, who you talked about before, who did the Shadowrun anthology, edited the Shadowrun anthology, and of course you've worked with. He is writing a Golem Arcana novella for us.
Oh, very cool. In fact, I think I may have known that. Well, John is a man of many talents. That's cool, though. John, very popular with our crew.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff. You got to raise Jeff's salary. I just want to say Jeff has already done, an enormous amount. So,
Jeff, do you have any feedback on that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Jeff says yes to all.
Yeah.
Yes to all.
I'm behind that 100%.
Very good. Thank you for putting me in that incredibly awkward situation. But, beyond that, I'll say that I think we have a pretty good idea where we're going to take Hong Kong's look. I'm not concerned about it in terms of being both authentic to Hong Kong and authentic to Shadowrun. And it will take the thing that Harebrained Schemes does well, which is iteration. And we'll go fast, we won't rush, and we'll get it. So I'm not trying to trivialize it, but I'm very, very confident.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, question from Farmore. Are there any more plans to make equipment more varied? I'm thinking different weapons in the same tier and weapon type, but with different pros and cons.
Thanks for pointing to me. So, has there been talk about it? Absolutely. The thing about game development that everybody needs to understand is game development is an exercise in precision time management, right? So time management is not about managing time. Time is a natural law. You can't manage time. All you can do is manage events, what you do with that time and which actions you take. And one of the things that I'm really proud of with the Shadowrun team and all of Harebrained Schemes is our ability to prioritize our work and constantly reprioritize our work as we're going to make sure that we're doing the very best thing for our audience every step of the way. That's a long way of saying maybe, right, based on everything that happens throughout development. If, for example, our work in the Matrix requires more iteration, it requires more of the design and art team, then something is going to fall off in honor of that higher level goal.
Okay.
So we do everything through something you've probably heard of many times called agile game development. We have a list of things we're going to do. We put them in priority order, and as we go through, we keep reprioritizing it until some things fall off. Until that time, there's a lot of things on the table until they're off the table.
Okay.
So I can neither confirm nor deny anything.
Gotcha. Vastrok asks about whether there are plans to help melee characters because gun characters can focus on quickness. Melee characters have to focus on 3 attributes and a myriad of skills. I think I can summarize that with, will melee get helped? And I will admit that I was a little disappointed in Glory's melee ability, at least in comparison to just blowing people away from a distance. That may also be because I liked being able to blow them away from a distance, but I'm curious about melee characters here, I guess, is the question.
Sure. Well, I will say that from my personal perspective, tearing people up with Glory's claws was the way to go.
Yeah, I never did anything but.
But that's just me.
Yeah.
I will say that because we did achieve the magic unlock,
right?
We will be adding foci to the game. That includes weapon foci for physical adapts.
Ah, okay.
So that should be of some help.
Cool.
Yeah, and that was part of our plan. And I just shout out to Tyler Carpenter,
Yep.
New designer that we added to the team specifically for Hong Kong, and a ginormous Shadowrun fan who
Yep.
played the hell out of our other games. And what's great about Tyler is he brings that perspective of a player and a designer and a huge Shadowrun fan to the team.
Right.
So a lot of the things that people are sensitive to out in the audience, Tyler's actually bringing directly into the team.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Lord W asks, will revamped
Lord W. Hey, man. I see you on the comment section all the time.
will revamped Matrix stretch goals change your approach to the main story and missions, interactions with other characters, exploration, etc.?
Oh, great question. Andrew, take that one. No. Take
You want to call in Jeff to help? I mean, you know.
I mean, I don't know what I can say here.
All right. I'll put you on the spot for the hell of it. But it was fun for a minute.
Yeah. No,
So,
I took that fun away.
The way we approach it is we had a mainline story that we were happy about that has some real nice flesh on its bones. We also had options that if this Matrix stretch goal or funding goal, was achieved, what we might do differently.
Right.
And so now that we've achieved that, we're doing things a little differently according to a previous directional idea. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, and that I think that sort of goes to the heart of the question. Jacob Kosh asks, general question about storytelling in Shadowrun. How do you guys deal with the challenge of, in a setting in game where the players spend a lot of time trying to sneak around and not be caught, or shoot people when they do get caught, having recurring NPC characters, having meaningful interactions that amount to more than just bluffing the guard and so forth? Are there elements that you try to focus on to mitigate that? And I guess I would ask, are there elements in this new version that you will focus on to mitigate that in Hong Kong?
I don't know, Andrew.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is a bit of a tricky situation because, it feels like part of your job should be not being seen and blowing people who are bad away when you encounter them, but you need to have recurring characters or there's no emotional resonance to what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think that the important thing to me, and this is something that I really came to face with the most recent patch that we put out that involved an addition to the Lodge trial run mission where you could choose to scrub the run. That was never an option before. The most important thing to me is that you can have these characters, you can have these moments, but what we cannot do is have something play out before your eyes and not give you the agency to choose what you do to resolve it or change it.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's like bad things happen and they can happen in the blink of an eye. But if it's happening 3 feet from me, I should have a say in how that plays out. And that sounds obvious, but, it's these are just the lessons you learn.
Sure. And tricky to navigate, too. I mean, figuring out how to manage that.
I mean, it's like one of the major lessons that I took from that mission and that experience was that, we're free to play with the hand of fate, doing things from off screen. But if there's ever a scenario where, something happens because reasons to advance the story, even if you're dealing with characters that are thematically important, that doesn't trump the need for agency of the player. I mean, that's railroading, and that's bad.
Respect the player.
Respect the player, respect your choices, and respect who you are as a character.
Very cool.
So it's like if the building is coming down, well, maybe you can't do anything to change that. You need to get out of the way. But if it's a guy who's going to bring the building down, you should be able to at least try to stop him. So, I mean, that's all a very long-winded way of getting at, it is important to have recurring characters. It is important for plot reasons to make it so that you can't just pull out your gun and shoot every person in the game in the face on your first meeting. But, it's like when those story moments come to a head, you need to, sort of balance your need to keep the story moving and keep the emotional resonance going with the player's agency.
Okay. I'm sorry, Arv, I have to jump in on this one too, because unfortunately in my role, the other thing to keep in mind that unfortunately as a player you never want to keep in mind, right? And as a consumer you never want to keep in mind is what we call the iron triangle of game development. And the iron triangle is time, money, and quality.
Yep.
Right? And in almost every step of the way, we go for the quality because we feel that's the biggest long-term investment. And yet we have to put it out at a certain time for business reasons. And we have very little money. I know this Kickstarter looks like it earned a lot and stuff like that. And game development, I know a lot of people think, oh, game developers are rich. And man, I wish
that.
It would be amazing. I would love living in that world.
Yeah, but the reason, it's just not that way. And so the amount of agency that the entire team wants to put in the game, is just gated by just how many people we have and how long we have before we run out of money. And so we would do a giant amount more if we could. And so it's a constant balancing act, always in favor of the player, and often not in favor of our personal health or our families.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, something that I'll add with that in mind is, sort of taking those lessons from, from that launch mission and, well, there was a choice that really had to be there. And so it wasn't. So it's time to go back and insert it. Well, part of my job has got to be learning where those moments come up and learning to navigate around them if there just is not the time to put a branch.
Yeah.
Let's avoid let's avoid putting you in a position where there really needs to be one if there isn't time to write one. I mean, it's all just part of the process.
Yeah.
Excellent.
That was a great question, by the way, Jacob Kosh. I've enjoyed reading your posts on various forums.
Yeah, a lot of these guys were I think chomping at the bit to actually get to talk to you guys directly.
No, but it will be shorter with our answers. Sorry.
That's okay. Novatech asks, and I don't know if I understand this question. Mitch, can you tip your hat toward the Mosaic Data Haven? Does that make sense? That I don't.
The Mosaic Data Haven.
Mosaic Data Haven. He said.
Oh, Mosaic Data Haven. I know what you're doing. Thank you, Novatech. Maybe. That's all you get.
Okay. That was a really cryptic question.
It's
and
okay.
Answer, so
if you want to follow up on that, and thank you for that, just send us a private message on Kickstarter, and I don't mind responding more.
That's funny. Will there be any? Let's see. Red Sniper asks, will there be any changes or additions to the Street Samurai?
Well, I would say yeah. In terms of all the cyber that we're adding to the game, and the new cyber skill we're adding to the game, and stuff like that. So yeah.
Okay. Soulchild, I'll ask this question, but I don't want them to spend a lot of time on it because I want us to focus on Shadowrun. Soulchild wanted to know if you're interested in doing a Kickstarter campaign for BattleTech. I'd like Mitch to survive his birthday, and I think if I asked that question now, he'd be like, I can't, what, God, what? So
No, you know what? That's one of the cool things about hitting 50. For some reason, the reserves of my energy are not depleted at all.
Okay.
And I don't quite understand it. But I think it's just the creative process of Hong Kong is so exhilarating that I feel like I can leap tall buildings in a single bound.
So
I love BattleTech. So here's the thing. I want to make a BattleTech game. I've made 5 or more BattleTech games. I never asked for it. It was thrust upon me. Jordan and I started working on Crimson Skies, and then he said, I need you to make Mech Commander. And what's interesting now is that I have a BattleTech story I want to tell, and I want to tell it with Andrew, and I want to tell it with this team. It's just and I know the gameplay. Like, I wrote the document already because I had to. You know what I mean? I just had to write the document. But the BattleTech license is not ours to control, and there's a lot of forces at work there, and so we'll see. If we can, we will. Because Jordan and I both love the idea, and it's just business at this point. But believe me, if we can make a BattleTech game, we will.
Yep.
Okay.
As someone who spent countless hours piloting Mech and the original Mech Warrior on my 486 SX25.
Yes.
Amen.
Yeah.
I did the same thing. I
I'm
did the same
100%
thing.
down with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
There are good stories to tell in the BattleTech universe that aren't told. And a lot of people think of giant robots as giant robots, and I think of the mech warrior in that giant robot. The giant robot as a tool, and there's plenty to do there. So thanks for the question.
That's a great answer, actually. That's more than I was expecting. So thank you for the question, Soul Child, because that's actually great. And yeah, you don't get Pacific Rim without something like BattleTech, in my opinion. So you don't get the sort of focus on the human being as well as the robot. So anyway.
Yeah. Again, sorry. Shout out back to Jordan, who understood this a long, long time ago.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Okay, Lebrat asks, question, Dead Man's Switch had a very film noir and like atmosphere, while Dragonfall was full-blown punk. How would you describe the general vibe of Hong Kong?
Andrew, that's our topic from yesterday.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's sort of a mashup, I guess, between, sort of Hong Kong crime story / a genre that will remain unnamed.
I was wondering. I'm like looking at you, like, where are you going, sport?
Yeah. No, I'm not going there. I mean, essentially, yes, we are taking a wide variety of influences, some of which are specific to Hong Kong, some of which are, just sort of more general that we haven't really played with, but we want to. One of the things that I really enjoyed in the director's cut of Dragonfall was playing with different genres. A number of the individual runs,
the side missions for the personal missions.
Yeah, straight up dark comedy to sci-fi horror to techno thriller, and we definitely want to continue playing within the constraints of genre that way.
Great answer.
Yep, absolutely.
I like it.
That's why he gets paid the big bucks, Mitch. That's why you told me in a secret email that Andrew was going to get the most money of anyone in the studio for the next 10 years. No, I'm just
as someone who doesn't even know what a big buck looks like, I would love it if that happened.
I know what big bucks look like. These aren't them.
These are not those. Ben Dups asks, do you have plans to include any romance plot lines in this new game? And if so,
No.
are you going to go hang out with BioWare? No, I'm just kidding.
No.
No, it's not going to happen.
No.
I mean, there are a few reasons for that, but one is that you guys are professionals. I mean, your Shadowrun team is...
No time for love, Dr. Jones!
Yeah, I mean, there are a variety of reasons, right? I mean, one is that we just don't want to focus on that. Two is that if you do focus on that, it takes a long time to do it successfully and really pull it off. And there's nothing worse than a really badly written, rushed romance plot line. That gets really smarmy really fast. It's something that we just don't want to approach in our game.
Gotcha. That seems logical. Monkey Commando asks a question on my mind as well. What size laptop fits in the bag? Because again, do want. So what size?
So the width of that laptop, of that bag is 15 inches.
Okay.
We are still looking into. That is not a final number. We are attempting to make that laptop bag or that messenger bag bigger.
Okay.
But that's the number that we can commit to. But the more backers at that level, frankly, the more money we'll have to make that bag better.
Okay. That bag is so awesome. Caliga asks, are there any plans for making Technomancers playable in upcoming Shadowrun digital games, I guess Hong Kong or otherwise?
Wrong timing.
Yeah, not in Hong Kong because they don't exist yet. In 2056, they are not around. So I mean, as for the future, who knows? But
the future is always in motion.
Indeed.
Lord W asks, any special plans with Lucky Strike?
Wait and see.
That's a big maybe.
The artist who made Lucky Strike really likes Lucky Strike.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll see.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, we'll see.
Non-committal answer.
Absolutely.
We'll see. Dime Store asks, is Harebrained, are you looking at the current Shadowrun Returns Hong Kong as a potential template for future efforts? The original was in 2 parts, make the engine, put out a solid campaign, upgrade the engine and put out a spectacular campaign with Dragonfall. Current Kickstarter shares some similarities. HK involves major engine upgrades and a new in-depth campaign where the team knows they can emphasize a great story and it will be appreciated. A continuation of the SR HK campaign. You may have already answered this a little bit, Mitch, in that I don't know that there's a major engine upgrade yet, but that is the kind of thing you might like to do in a future iteration if given the opportunity.
Like to do / are required to do to really expand further.
Okay.
You know, because we took a year to make Shadowrun Returns and the editor and the campaign all together. You know, we took more time with Dragonfall and the director's cut to make those upgrades, but there's only so far you can take an engine without a heavy rewrite, and that's just the nature of the beast. After all this time of doing this, you know, we know what time it is. So, you know, to go forward in the future and really push where our aspirations are, it's going to take some work.
Okay. Okay. Twitch Pally asks, is there a way we can get the editor early to start working on 3.0 maps, and or what editor updates might be getting planned?
Oh, first of all, thanks for your comments on the board. I recognize your name. And probably not. And the reason why, honestly, is because something that we learned from Shadowrun Returns Kickstarter, you know, we gave that early access to the editor, and yet we changed quite a few things before release, making some of the things that people made with that editor, they had to go through a rework. So unlikely, especially because some of the editor features that we're adding in order to create the content that we want to add for Dragonfall are going to come in late, and so we can't in good conscience commit to giving that out to anybody. And also, it's honestly a resource drain on the studio to put that stuff out, to do technical support for those people you know, playing around with the tools before it comes out. We need to focus on making a superior product and a superior gameplay experience for people.
That's logical, yeah. Let's see. UGE Plex, who is a Twitter god, as I mentioned, he retweeted this a bunch of times.
Twitter god.
Amazing. Will our
happy
team...
birthday, UGE Plex.
Oh, happy birthday, Hugh. Wow. Then happy
his was Sunday.
It's everyone's birthday.
And by the way, there is a package in the mail for you.
Ah. Well, so, question, will our team from Hong Kong join us in the Shadows of Hong Kong mini campaign? I assume it's just the lead, just your, like, the main runner, right? Not the whole team, or is it the whole team?
I absolutely will not comment on that because it depends on what happens at the end of the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. Let's
Beyond
see.
what I just said.
Yeah.
I won't comment except for telling you
that.
That fact. Dime Store asks, has the team considered sponsoring costuming costs for any cosplayers who would want to attend major conventions as characters from Dragonfall and our SRHK? I have to say, I just got in the mail today, just got in the email, my official invitation to DragonCon as an attending pro.
Oh, neat.
So,
Nice.
So I would be happy.
It's been a while since I've been a dragon.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about it because of the cosplay stuff. So, I'm completely, I would not be willing to dress up as a character, but if I could get that bag, no, I'm just kidding. But no, I'm joking. But the cosplay, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you guys don't have sponsor costs. However, you guys have been very good about reaching out to people and being able to provide them things that, you know, like 3D dimensional character, like pictures and so forth from the previous campaign. So I don't know. Is that the kind of thing that you would love to be able to see more people doing, or?
Oh, God. Sorry, real fast. I love cosplay. I use it. All right. Nerd alert. Here it comes. I used to LARP a lot.
Hey, listen. It's good.
So I get that out there.
Yep.
I love cosplay. My children grew up cosplaying at like Emerald City Comic Con, etc.
Sure.
Huge fan. But when it comes to sponsoring anything, if we get any extra money, I'll tell you exactly where it'll go. To paying the people at Harebrained Schemes what they deserve.
Yeah.
Because no joke, and I don't want to make light of this. The people at Harebrained Schemes, I'm not talking about me and Jordan, you know, because we know what we're in for. Whatever, starting a company is just stupid in this economic climate. But the people that work, especially on Shadowrun, are doing it for the passion, and they are woefully underpaid. And I'm talking about Andrew, who's sitting right next to you, who is woefully underpaid. And so any extra money we get needs to go to the talent in the studio who have busted their asses to make this stuff. And so a sponsorship is way far on the horizon, and the people in the studio are #1 priority.
I spoken like a true studio head, and I 1000% agree that please more money to the creatives. That's really really critical.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just really important. Lord W asks, question: can characters die permanently in SHK story wise?
Do we want to?
No. Lord W, we love you. We're not answering that.
Not
either.
answering that. Yeah, it was nice that you threw it in though, just in the middle.
Yeah, we tried. We want to answer your questions. We just refuse. Partly it's because, and here's an honest answer. Whatever we want and whatever actually gets into the game are really two different things, like I said
Absolutely,
before.
and we can't commit to doing a thing that we might have to change.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cherry Flight asks, how will the mini campaign, if it's funded, work with multiple endings? And I assume that means multiple endings off of the original campaign that features.
That's right. Yeah. So one of our goals, I'm going to go out on a limb. One of our goals for the mini campaign is for you to feel more consequences for your action in the main campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's a goal. And that's as far as I'll go.
Yeah.
Okay. A goal. I was waiting for, and that's it.
And scene. So we have, one of the things that we're both, I think, speaking for you, proud of is really trying to work on this story with the end in mind from the beginning. And so we have a real good idea of what should happen at the end of the game. We'll see what happens when we actually get to the end of the game. But having the ramifications of the endings affect the mini campaign, that as a player, that sounds great to me.
Absolutely. I mean, there's nothing more frustrating than loading up an expansion or a sequel and realizing that the game has paid no attention to the decisions you made.
That goes back to respect for your audience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm also responding to chat at the same time. All right, let's see. Dime Store asks, can you give us any insight into how character stats and skills might have changed? And maybe you can just sort of ask that as a general thing. Was there any major change in how you calculated them, how they were deployed, that sort of thing?
Not yet, but first of all, this hasn't been said before on the stream, but the design team are very diligent about reading all the comments that are on the Kickstarter page, and thank you for those. A lot of people make suggestions or have feature requests or balance requests and stuff like that, and if you read that comments page, you'll notice that I never answer those. I say the blanket response that I give is, we're listening, right? But we're committing to nothing. And we know that we are adding a new skill to the game.
Yes.
Right? To take into account the new cyber tech. But beyond that, we're not talking about individual tweaks.
Okay. But there's some movement in the works there, sort of in general terms.
There's talk.
Yes.
Good. Okay.
Talk is cheap.
Yes. Let's see. Caleb Benoit asks, was there a fear of making your main squad too large that you would never want to hire and learn about hireable runners? I think that might have been more of an issue with Deadman than with
with Deadman Switch, Deadman Switch was a loner, comes back to Seattle and hires generic runners.
Yeah.
And Dragonfall with an animal.
Right. I mean, I will say that on a general level, the biggest issue with making the team too large is that every one of those core party NPCs has reams and reams of dialogue. And I'm not just talking about when you're speaking to them in town. On missions, especially if there are conversations between multiple party members, you need to rig up you need to rig up a whole priority system where it's like, well, is Gobbet here? If she is, then she'll say this. And if she isn't, then Rue will say this. Ractor probably wouldn't talk here at all, so we'll just leave him out of the list. And then, depending on who speaks, well, okay, who would be the first to respond? And it gets stunningly complicated very quickly.
Especially when you're trying to do naturalistic dialogue.
Exactly. You don't just want them all to say the same thing. They each have their own way of speaking, their own pattern of speech. You need to take account of that. Otherwise, it feels as though the game isn't taking the character seriously. Yeah. And so the more of those characters you put in, it just grows exponentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think that we've got about as many core party members as we're comfortable with right now.
No, we're a little beyond comfort, but we're up for it.
Well, we're up for it. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's like I can't think of a single one of them that I don't want to write.
Oh, absolutely.
They're all going to be awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
But if we were to add in another member of the party that could or could not be there, and
we would lose family members.
It would be bad.
Yes.
So,
we're both married. We both have kids, and
Yeah.
we both would like to keep both the wives and the kids.
Absolutely.
Am I correct?
Yeah.
I'm speaking. For both of us.
It's as the father of a daughter who's currently teething. My ability to pull all-nighters is a little less than it was.
It comes back.
Mine just turned 7, and yes, this too shall
mine just
pass.
graduated college. I've got some energy.
This too shall pass, though, Andrew. Let's see.
We did, yeah.
Dime Store asks, will the expanded Matrix involve any new skills, hardware, or stealth? And I guess I'll rephrase that. Could it involve those things?
Maybe yes.
Okay. I had a feeling that was what we would get.
That was pretty decent. I mean, that was accurate, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Those things may be in there, yes.
Lord W asks, do you have any... I see Lord W, I'm getting a sense now that he keeps trying to throw in these... So he asks, do you have any specific information about the $1 million mini campaign, who will be there, where it will be, etc.?
Not that we're going to transmit to you, Lord W, but thank you for the question.
It is really... It's amazing.
No, you're very persistent, and actually, I think that's awesome. I think it's cool as hell.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, definitely.
And by the way, while we're talking about it, because Lord W is on the comments page on Kickstarter all the time. If you are a Kickstarter backer and you're not reading the comments page, I suggest you do, because the community that's there is incredibly welcoming and incredibly cool, and it's worth just hanging out there a little bit. It's really nice.
Yeah, I took a look at that earlier today. It was yeah, you're right. It's pretty cool group.
I never get tense going onto our comments page. Like, what do these people say next?
How are they going to attack me? Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Series Runner asks, and I mentioned before that Series Runner is one of the guys playing with us, and actually is graduating with a BA in game art and animation. He's very good at it. I've seen some of his work. So he says, question, are you hiring any hardworking artists with glowing personalities as interns or otherwise?
We have one opening, yes. We have an opening for an animator. And if you have actually made games before and you think you have what it takes, and you live in the Seattle area, we're not going to transplant you here or anything because no money. But if you're in the Seattle area and you've done this before and you think you can hang with us and be cool, I don't mean we're cool, I mean be cool to us. Write to us at jobs@hbs-studios.com.
jobs@hbs-studios.com. Very cool. I can attest to his work, having seen it. But
no kidding.
So yeah, series is very good at it. My skill is in writing, not in drawing. But if I know good stuff when I see it. Let's see. Dime Store asks, are there any plans to introduce a social skill track? The previous etiquette-based system was a good start, but leaves lots of room for more depth.
I will say we are actively exploring that idea.
Ah, there you go. Actively exploring the idea. Will there be any characters from previous...
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Andrew, did I jump in over you?
No, we were just agreeing that I said the right thing.
Oh,
okay. Good.
Sagely.
Yeah, that's the
All
way I
right.
do it.
You don't
Lord W asks, will there be any characters from previous games present in SHK? And I think I asked that before, and you said there was one sort of reference, but more or less the people are fairly new, right, Andrew? Is that...
Well, I mean, I will not speak to who might or might not make a cameo or whether that will happen. The only direct link that we've talked about and that we will talk about at this juncture is, a throwaway line from Lucky Strike about Ractor and about how he used to be a member of her team.
Okay. Right. That's right. I remember that. Yeah.
Or rather, in the time frame of Dragonfall, he is a member of her team.
Okay.
So.
This game takes place 2 years later.
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, 2 years after. Okay. Blake's asked, could you add Dragonfall figurines to the Kickstarter rewards?
No, we could, but we will not because it would be a financial disaster.
Okay. There you go. We want to avoid financial disasters.
But believe me, that was a huge conversation because the truth, I want them.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I want the Pure String the play set, but
Oh, yeah.
it's
Yeah, but financial disaster.
Okay. Evil Miera asks, and I think we've seen that. I think you've already answered this. Any new tiers on the horizon or add-ons? And I think the answer to that is no. Right? You've gone as far as you'll go with the tiers and the add-ons on this.
I believe so, yeah. I believe so. The one thing that I'll say is that I'm sensitive to this. You know, to the people that don't play tabletop games, that came to Shadowrun from the SNES and Sega world, you know, we understand that some of the reward tiers are not as exciting to you. And I'm actively thinking about those things, but there's no commitment at all, and it's very likely that it's going to stay the same. But it's not about, I think this is the important thing, it's not about more money or getting more money. If we were to do anything, it's all about serving the audience and the different audiences that come to us. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely,
Okay.
it does.
Yeah.
Hilna says Half-Life 3 confirmed. Yes, exactly. Messiah, one of my regulars, asks whether she can marry Glory. Can I have a figure or a poster or a body pillow? Messiah is an enormous fan of Glory in every respect. So,
oh my God, I got to tell you, Catherine Walker, associate producer here, who was production assistant on Dragonfall, did this amazing Glory cosplay.
it was pretty outstanding.
Last PAX Prime, and go to our Facebook page, the Harebrained Schemes Facebook page, and look at the pictures because it was great. And she didn't tell anybody she was doing it, and she just walked into PAX when we were showing Dragonfall. It's like, oh my God, you're Glory! It was really cool. Yeah.
wow, that's cool.
Yeah, she was great.
Let's see. Bendups asks, any plans to add voice acting? I bet I know the answer to this.
Andrew, you got this one.
To the core game, no.
Absolutely not.
No way. So we address this in text. The issue, there are many issues with adding voice acting. One of them is that it would interfere with the theater of the mind that we've got going on. You know, when you read a line of dialogue, you know, we want it to feel like getting lost in a good book and not watching a movie. You know, so I mean, there's sort of that from our own, you know, personal preference level. But beyond that, when you start voicing your games, you are locking dialogue down. It's set in stone. Recording voices is very time-consuming and very expensive. And once a line of dialogue has been recorded, that's the line of dialogue, and you need to do whatever gymnastics you need to do to make everything else fit with that, because you're not recording it again.
Mm-hmm.
The way that our writing process works, I'm making changes until the very last minute.
Until we pry the keyboard from your cold,
exactly.
clenched fist.
It's writing is iterative, and you know, it's like, well, there could be something over here that only got one or two passes. I want to put another pass on that thing. If it's been recorded, I can't do that.
Actually, you know, and I'm sure you'd agree, Dragonfall would not be Dragonfall if we had gone through that process, because truly late, ridiculously late. Like, I was trained, never do this late.
Mm-hmm.
We identified a flaw in the story that took us 2 full weeks of 12-hour days to fix.
Wow.
And with voiceover, we wouldn't have been able to fix it, and it wouldn't be Dragonfall.
Exactly. The story really would have suffered because of that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, both because of our own personal preference for having this be a story that you read and digest and experience.
Gobbet's voice in your head, not the one that we're telling
exactly.
you to listen
can
to.
cast whatever actor you choose.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another thing with voice acting is it can be wonderful if it's done well. One bad voice can really ruin the experience of many scenes in a game.
I'm sure there are people in the audience that can identify specific voice actors.
And it often has.
Yeah.
And so, it's like there are both, sort of our own personal preference reasons to avoid it, and there are practical reasons to avoid it.
Mm-hmm. Now, that said, you know, one of the funding goals that was unlocked that we really do appreciate, because they get to not only add to our storytelling toolkit, but also add to just sort of the general presentation polish level of the game, is we have these animatic sort of, for lack of a better word, transition scenes or cut scenes that we're adding. And we have committed to adding voiceover to those. And we have a very specific plan for how to do that. But one thing I'll tell you is that those voiceovers will not be the main characters of the game in order to maintain their voices in your head.
Right.
Okay, that's interesting. Hexodemus asks, is it possible that we might see a character from the Dead Man's Switch campaign in Shadowrun Hong Kong? I'm guessing that's already been more or less answered. I think we know.
Yeah,
what's
we've
gonna show up
answered
there,
that
so,
one.
yeah, so let's move on to that.
Answered. Counselor, move on.
Let's see. Question: how many times? Is this a serious question, Gplex? How many times have you caught yourself or the team saying or typing honk honk? No, seriously, I keep doing it and having to correct myself and repeating it a lot.
I've seen that on the comments. But...
Yeah, there have been a few honk kongs showing up in my writing. It happens.
I've actually got autocorrect set to fix that.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Neo Anarchy asks, are we going to see the Wuxing, or I guess it'd be the Wushang Sky Tower?
No comment.
Okay, so right, no comment. I won't put any spin on that at all. Let's see. Colonel Hathy asks, I only just noticed that there's a startling similarity between Green Winters and Mitch. Has any other characters been based on members of the HBS team?
Funny that you should ask. A number of characters were based on members of the HBS team. I think one of the most amazing likenesses was our good friend Mitch here as the head ghoul in the sewers.
Oh, that's a likeness. Yeah. They're like, "Hey, Mitch, you're in the game." I'm like, "Really? I'm a ghoul?"
Yes, you're described as a shambling pile of meat.
Not the first time, by the way.
We apologize then for killing you in the game, Mitch, when that happened. We didn't realize.
Oh man,
I didn't know.
But
I didn't know.
I mean, a number of other characters in Dragonfall are based on people at HBS and other people that we know. And
actually, player character portraits that you can choose are actually members of the studio.
Absolutely.
Oh, cool.
And of course Jordan's in there too.
Yeah, I would expect as much. Let's see. Okadrian asks, I can only speak to what I've experienced 70% through Shadowrun Returns, but I've noticed a penchant for few NPCs who either are A, are mission inventory related, or B, have their own side convos, which I love. Do you have plans to space maps with more NPCs that are present simply for 3-line dialogue exchanges? P.S. Love, love, love your environmental descriptive works, gents. And I do think actually you guys did more of that in Dragonfall.
We did.
What he's referring to, I guess, will that process continue in Hong Kong? I guess.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. We absolutely want to make this feel like a living, breathing, fleshed out world. I mean, it's no fun to run around an environment where nothing is happening.
Yeah.
Okay. And it really contributes to it. I think just sensing that they're always chatting about things that are going on. Let's see. Question from PK Loop. Is there any interest on HBS's part of producing a Shadowrun on the scale of a Baldur's Gate 2, item-wise, spells, depth, the continued success of the game? I'm guessing that you wouldn't, I don't know that Shadowrun, you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, I'm not sure that Shadowrun lends itself to the epic, sprawling nature of a Baldur's Gate 2. I mean, I don't know. It feels like it's a more, even the locale is sort of not quite right for it. But I'm curious what you think.
Let me start and then take it. I'm sure we both have opinions on this.
Yeah.
For me, and I'm betting we're on the same page with this, what we're after right now is to tell tight, well-paced stories with great characters.
And no filler.
Right, and no filler. And so that's really what we're after, is to really craft something that has a strong beginning, a strong middle, and a strong end.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by no filler isn't everything has to be tied directly to the mainline story.
Oh, absolutely not.
It's just that it all has to have a purpose. I mean, whether that is world building, which is a great thing to do,
absolutely,
or just establishing tone,
character,
advancing character. I mean, I just it's like there should be no kill 10 rats. There should be no.
We can leave it there, right?
Yeah, we'll leave it there.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It makes quite a bit of sense.
Okay.
And I agree, by the way, because I think otherwise I don't know that the world fits it.
One more thing about this, because I'm the one who fields all of the feature requests that come in from the audience, and some of those feature requests are brilliant feature requests. But what we're trying to do is just what we just said, that that really tight, well-paced, well sort of crafted story, and everything's sort of in service to that. And we're trying to sort of carve out our own space with this and say, look, this is the games that we make. You know, it's not everything to everybody, and that's okay.
Right.
You know, we are not trying to broaden our audience to cover everybody. We're trying to make games that have an audience that really love what we're doing, and we want to make games for them.
Yeah, which is that's almost identical to what the folks from Almost Human that made Legend of Grimrock 1 and 2 said.
Sure.
When they were on. They said the exact same thing, which is we kind of know the games we want to make at this point. We've gotten a lot of feedback, and this is the audience that we're building it for. It is, you know, Eye of the Beholder, Dungeon Keeper related, Dungeon Master related, as opposed to, you know, Skyrim. Two very different sets of games.
It's a very crowded marketplace.
Yeah.
You know, and trying to compete with everybody, that's not good business either.
No, I totally agree. UGA Plex asks, is Duncan Wu a member of the Wu Zhang family, and what is Duncan Wu's given name?
No comment.
That sounds like spoilers.
Well, Duncan's given name is Duncan Wu.
Duncan Wu's given name is Duncan Wu. As to what connection he has with canonical stuff going on in Shadowrun, no comment on that.
Yeah. But we've read these comments on the boards before, and we know you're talking about it.
Dime Store asks, oh, okay, I already did that. Let's see. Hexademus asks, will the campaign length of Shadowrun Hong Kong be closer to Dead Man's Switch or Dragonfall?
Well,
probably.
Oh, it's definitely closer to Dragonfall.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah. We started with Dead Man's Switch and then added from there.
That's what I figured. Yeah. I would have figured as much.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that's what I would have assumed too. Katarns ask, is dual wielding pistols or dual wielding other stuff coming?
No. The reason for that, honestly, is, you know, I love dual wield, right? In the original XCOM, I had the two pistol guys.
Well, and I mean, it's Hong Kong. You know, there should be dual wielding pistols and dubs. But
can we please have dual wielding dubs? That would be the greatest thing ever.
Wait, no, that is a complete new game.
Yeah.
Dual wielding dubs.
I'm inspired. I don't know about you.
Yeah, that's your extra stretch goal. If you reach a 1,000,001, like an extra dollar, like on Price is Right, then you go above that. Then you hit the dual wielding dubs minigame.
Yeah, dual wielding is a great example of a feature that you go, oh yeah, dual wield, right? And then you think, yeah, but what's the higher order thing? You know, more magic, more tech, you know, more content, etc. And so that's one of those things that just priority-wise just got pushed down. You know, and Matrix. Let's fix the Matrix first.
Right. And on top of that, doing something like dual wielding, I agree that it would be awesome, but doing something like dual wielding would involve new animations for every character model. It would involve new UI. It would involve like there would be a huge ripple effect to add something like that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but a lot of these things, and of course, you know, we're paid to think about this, and unfortunately, we think about it in our sleep. But there are amazingly broad ramifications to every decision like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Although chat seems to be amused by the idea of freeze cuckoo as the two doves come flying out of the hands.
No, again, I'm inspired.
Yeah.
Twitch Pally asks, question, can we get some options for non-lethal subduing of enemies?
You will note that in the Kickstarter, Duncan Wu has 2 upgrade tracks, as do all of the characters. One of them is called Crowd Control, and it focuses on stuns and non-lethal takedowns.
Ooh, that's awesome. Okay, that's really cool. That's really neat. Let's see.
Shout out to Trevor
for that.
That's a great idea. That's really cool.
So I mean, what we spelled out specifically is he can get access to a stun baton, he can do AP attacks, and he has zip ties that he can use to subdue stunned enemies.
Will that, I don't suppose, this is just a question, will that have any material impact on the way that you are perceived if you engage more in non-lethal as opposed to lethal takedowns?
I cannot comment on that.
Please. No, it's fine.
It's really about time more than anything.
Okay. All right, I understand. It's just that that would be really, really extra neat, but no need to fanboy out that much.
All right, now, our one thing, geez, we have to go back to work soon.
Yes, yeah, I know. I'm actually.
I know that
just
sounds
about...
weird at this late time of night, but
no, I totally get it.
Got to be with his daughter, but I got to go back to work.
Yeah, no,
so
I get that.
A couple more questions, and then we gotta.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Thank you for letting me know. We have hit the 2-hour mark now, so these guys have been incredibly nice about that. Let's do like 2 or 3 more, and then I will, of course, let you guys go.
And Garrett, I'll be right there.
Let's see.
I hope he's still there.
Glob Monkey asks, question, and I believe this was voted on in some respect, how do you pick a location like Hong Kong in such an expansive universe? Are there other locations you would love to use in a future game, perhaps? And I guess, what might those be? You know?
Yeah, to take the second part of that answer, there are many places that we want to go, and the design team wants to go, and the art team would love to go. That's an easy one. Yeah, go.
Should we give any examples? Or?
Well, Australia's one.
Yeah, we'd love to do Australia.
Nice.
The Sealashide, Council Lands, I mean, all sorts of great stuff that we could do.
Actually, LA, we've talked about LA.
LA, we'd love to explore the Orc Underground. There are a ton of things we'd like to do.
Yeah.
But as for why we chose Hong Kong.
Hong Kong, that's simple. That was just voted on by our backers, right? When we said, hey, we're going to add a second city to Shadowrun Returns, we gave the backers a list to choose from, and they chose Berlin, but Hong Kong was an incredibly close second. So when we started this one, we went down several story paths. I won't comment which ones, but it was funny. It was our community manager, Robin, who said, well, those are really good ideas, and that's a good story, but what's your response when people say, what about Hong Kong? And I went, oh, well, we're just doing Hong Kong. And so that was that.
Pretty much how that worked out.
Gotcha. That seems logical.
And she was just looking for what's the fact answer. You know, when somebody says, why aren't you doing Hong Kong? I thought that would be dumb not to do Hong Kong.
There isn't a good one. So
we better do that.
Yeah, logical. And actually, PK Loop just wanted me to follow up on the question about the epic scale. I think he says he was asking more about the amount, if I'm getting this right, about the equipment, the number of like items, guns, gear, you know, because there's a million of those things in Baldur's Gate 2. So is there an increase in overall gear available maybe in Hong Kong might be a way to put that?
Oh, sure.
Well, we're adding more stuff.
Yeah, we're adding more stuff. That's all as time allows, and also in support of what we're doing. So, you know, you'll see there are new cyber weapons especially, and so we're focusing on those, and then we will add more as time allows.
Right, and that plays into the earlier question about anything, you know, being put in to help out Street Sam's. Well, cyber weapon combat would be one.
Gotcha.